Let's talk about something I think we've all felt at some point. That little pull towards something you can't quite explain. A sense that there's a bigger purpose for your life, if you could just find the courage to take that first step. Well, today we're going to dive into one of history's most powerful stories about that very feeling. The incredible journey of a man named Abraham. But listen, this isn't just some old story from a dusty book. It's actually a mirror, and it reflects a question that I think we all face. What does faith really look like when it's not just a belief, but a choice? A choice that could cost you everything. When the path is totally uncertain, what do you do? Let's explore that. So let's get right to the heart of it. The central idea here is a game changer. What if faith isn't something you have, but something you do? What if it's less of a noun and more of a verb, an action, a choice? That's the whole premise we're exploring. And our guide is the man who basically wrote the book on it, Abraham. It all kicks off with this one command. A command that is so simple and yet absolutely terrifying. Just imagine hearing these words spoken to you right now. A call to pack up and leave everything you know, your home, your friends, your identity, for a future you can't even begin to picture. Seriously, what would you do? This right here is the cosmic gamble Abraham was asked to take. On one side of the scale, you've got everything that's real and tangible. His country, his family, his security. On the other side, a set of incredible, almost unbelievable promises about a future he couldn't see. He was asked to trade what he had for what he was promised. And here's the kicker. There was no map, no 5-year plan, no GPS coordinates to plug in. Abraham's journey wasn't about following a pre-drawn path. It was about trusting the one who called him. And that, right there, is where real faith begins, at the exact point where our own certainty runs out. This quote just sums it all up, doesn't it? It wasn't about having all the answers lined up beforehand. It was about taking that first step, and then the next one, and the one after that, all without knowing the final destination. That is the very definition of faith in motion. But here's the thing. That first step, that was just the warm-up. Abraham's journey wasn't some one-and-done leap of faith. It was a series of escalating tests that would challenge him to his absolute core. So let's look at how his trust was literally forged in the fire of these trials. You can really see his journey unfold in 3 major tests of trust. First, there's the call test, a test of leaving what's comfortable. Then came the waiting test, a test of enduring when nothing seems to be happening. And finally, the surrender test, the ultimate test of giving up everything. Each one pushed him further and deepened his relationship with God in ways he probably never imagined. So, that first test was the call itself. It was fundamentally a test of his priorities. Was he going to choose the comfort and security he already knew? Or was he going to choose a divine purpose he couldn't even see yet? He chose purpose, and with that single choice, he walked into a completely new destiny. And then came the part that I think is the hardest for so many of us, the waiting. He was promised a son, a legacy that would become a great nation. But what followed that promise? Decades. Decades of silence. This wasn't a no. It was a test of his endurance, a long, slow process of purifying his faith. And then the final, almost unimaginable test. The moment he's asked to sacrifice the very promise he waited his entire life for, his son, Isaac. This was it, the ultimate test of trust. A moment of complete and total surrender, a choice to believe in God's goodness even when it made absolutely no sense from a human perspective. So after all that, after being pushed to the absolute limit, the story shifts. The tension finally breaks, and it gives way to a reward that was more profound than anything he could have possibly asked for. It wasn't just about what he got, it was about who he became. And here it is. This is the ultimate reward. It's bigger than land, more valuable than a nation of descendants. He was given a title that I think speaks to the deepest longing of the human heart. He was called a friend of God. Not a servant, not a follower, a friend. So what does that even mean, to be a friend of God? Well, it's not about being perfect. It's about a relationship built on radical trust, on transparency, and on partnership. It's about being invited into the inner circle, where your obedience doesn't create distance, it creates intimacy. And just look at the blessings that flowed from that obedience. He got divine direction, a right standing with God, a covenant relationship that would literally change the course of human history, a legacy that echoes to this day, and, of course, the highest honor of all, that friendship with God. Okay, so what does this story from thousands of years ago have to do with you and me right now? It's so much more than just history. It's a living roadmap for our own journeys of faith, purpose, and trust. Let's break down the practical lessons we can pull from Abraham's life. Think of it like this, almost like a 5-step guide inspired by Abraham. First, listen for that quiet voice. Second, take that first step, even if you can't see the whole path. Third, learn to embrace those seasons of waiting and know that's where growth happens. Fourth, be willing to surrender the things that compete with your trust. And fifth, remember that faith isn't a one-time leap, it's a daily walk. You know, if you walk away with just one thing from all this, let it be this. Faith is not about knowing the way, it's about knowing the one who leads the way. It's not about you having all the answers, it's about trusting the one who already does. And so we're left with this really powerful idea. For Abraham, his promised land was a physical place called Canaan. For us, Canaan is a symbol of our own divine purpose, our destiny. And his story teaches us that the path to that place is paved with small, daily acts of trust and obedience. So the real question is, what's your next step going to be?